You are being controlled right now, and you don't even know it. Not by chains, not by force, by something far more dangerous. Your attachments. Every person you can't let go of holds a string tied to your spine. Every situation you refuse to walk away from is a cage you built with your own hands. And the worst part, you decorated the cage, you made it comfortable, you called it love, you called it loyalty, you called it dedication. The world doesn't reward the attached. It devours them. It uses their need against them and spits them out hollow. Machiavelli understood this 5 centuries ago. The Stoics understood it 2,000 years before him. And yet here you are, bleeding from bonds you refuse to cut. This is your warning. This is your wake-up call. By the end of this video, you will think differently. You will see every relationship, every situation, every emotional anchor in your life with surgical clarity. You will learn the art that kings, conquerors, and the silently powerful have practiced for centuries. The cold, calculated, liberating art of detachment. Sit down, listen closely. This changes everything. Why attachment is your greatest weakness. Let me tell you something nobody around you has the courage to say. Your attachments are not a sign of your strength. They are the blueprint of your destruction. Every person you cling to, every outcome you obsess over, every scrap of validation you chase from mouths that don't matter, all of it is a leash around your throat. And someone, somewhere, is holding the other end. Machiavelli wrote that the one who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command. But how can you command anything when your emotions are giving orders before your mind even wakes up? You cannot lead your own life while you are a hostage to what others think of you. That is the first truth. Attachment is not love. It is dependency wearing a mask. When you attach yourself to a person, you hand them a remote control to your mood, your decisions, your sleep, your ambition. They don't even have to press the buttons. The mere possibility that they might is enough to keep you obedient. You start editing yourself, shrinking, adjusting your fire so nobody feels the heat. And slowly, the person you were supposed to become dies in a room full of compromises. This is not philosophy for the faint. This is war strategy for the mind. The ancient Stoics knew that the root of suffering is not pain itself, but attachment to things beyond your control. Machiavelli took it further. He understood that attachment is not just a personal weakness, it is a political one. The moment your enemy knows what you love, they know exactly where to strike. Your attachment is your exposed nerve, and the world does not hesitate to press on it. So, here is your first lesson. Stop identifying your worth with what you hold on to. Your power does not live in what you have. It lives in what you can lose without losing yourself. The man who needs nothing from no one stands in a category the world cannot touch. That is where you are headed. That is who you are becoming. The illusion of loyalty. Let me dismantle something you have been worshipping your entire life. Loyalty. You were taught that loyalty is sacred, that standing by people no matter what makes you honorable, that the ones who stay through the fire are the ones who deserve your soul. Beautiful idea, dangerous lie. Machiavelli observed the courts of princes and the halls of power and saw one repeating truth. Men are ungrateful, fickle, deceptive, and driven by self-interest. That was not cynicism, that was observation. He did not hate humanity, he simply refused to lie about it, and you need to stop lying about it too. Think about every time you gave your loyalty to someone who did not earn it. You stayed when they showed you who they were the first time. You made excuses for behavior that a stranger would have walked away from in a heartbeat. You gave your word to people who were already calculating how to use it against you. That is not loyalty. That is self-destruction with a noble name. The truly powerful do not hand out loyalty like currency. They treat it like a contract. It is earned, reviewed, and revoked the moment it is no longer mutual. This does not make you cold, it makes you accurate. There is a difference between a man who cannot feel and a man who refuses to be fooled by his feelings. You want to be the second one. The streets, the boardrooms, the relationships, they all operate on the same principle. People stay where it benefits them. The moment the cost outweighs the reward, they vanish, and they will frame their exit in language that makes you the villain. You gave too much. You expected too little. You trusted the words while ignoring the patterns. From this point forward, watch what people do when it costs them something to stand by you. That is the only loyalty that exists. Everything else is convenience dressed in emotion. Read the room, not the promises. A man who masters this distinction will never be blindsided again. He will never waste years building monuments on ground that was never his. Detachment from false loyalty is not betrayal. It is the purest form of self-respect you will ever practice. Emotional investments that bankrupt you. You have been pouring yourself into people and situations that give you nothing back, and you have been calling it strength. It is not strength, it is a hemorrhage. Every ounce of energy you spend worrying about someone who is not worrying about you is an investment with a guaranteed loss. Every sleepless night spent replaying conversations, overanalyzing silences, begging for clarity from people who are perfectly clear in their indifference, that is emotional bankruptcy, and no one is coming to bail you out. Machiavelli understood that resources are finite. Time, energy, attention. These are the currencies of power. A prince who spends his treasury on subjects who plot behind his back is not generous. He is a fool marching toward his own ruin. You are the prince of your own life, and you have been funding your own downfall. Look at where your emotions go each day. Who occupies your mind when you wake up? Whose approval are you silently chasing when you make decisions? Whose rejection still echoes in the choices you make right now? That person is your creditor. And as long as they live rent-free in your head, you are paying a debt you never owed. The Stoics had a word for this. They called it passion, not in the romantic sense, but in the original meaning. To suffer, to be acted upon. When you overinvest emotionally, you become passive. Reactive. You stop moving with intention and start moving with desperation. Your actions become responses to other people's actions. You are no longer the chess player. You are the piece. Cold observation will save your life. Step back from every situation that makes you feel frantic. If it clouds your thinking, it is costing you power. If a relationship requires you to abandon your peace just to maintain it, the price is too high. You were not built to bleed quietly for people who would not bruise for you. Audit your emotional expenses. Cut what does not return. Reinvest in your mind, your vision, your discipline. That is where the compound interest of real power begins. You will not get these years back. Stop spending them on people who cannot even afford your worst. The power of walking away. There is one move that terrifies people more than anger, more than confrontation, more than any threat you could ever make. Walking away. Silence in your step. No explanation, no second glance. Just gone. Most people cannot do it. They are addicted to closure. They need the last word, the final conversation, the dramatic exit where everyone understands their pain. But that need for closure is just another chain. The moment you require something from someone before you can leave, you have already lost. Machiavelli studied the princes who conquered kingdoms and the ones who lost them. The difference was rarely about strength. It was about willingness. The prince who could walk away from a negotiation held the table in his hand. The prince who needed the deal more than the other side became a servant at his own summit. This applies to everything: relationships, business, friendships, arguments. The person who can walk away without shaking holds all the leverage in any room, and the world senses it. When you stop chasing, something shifts. People who ignored you begin to notice. Opportunities that dried up start flowing. Doors you stopped knocking on begin to open on their own. This is not magic. This is power dynamics at their most basic level. Desire repels, detachment attracts. The man who does not need the room commands it simply by being willing to leave. You have stayed too long in places that stopped deserving you. You have fought for seats at tables where your plate was always empty. You argued with people who were never listening. You begged for love from hearts that were already closed. Every moment you stayed past your expiration in those spaces, you handed away a piece of your authority. Practice the walk, not out of spite, not out of ego, out of clarity. When something no longer serves your growth, your peace, or your power, you leave, cleanly, quietly, permanently. No announcements, no ultimatums, just movement in the direction of your own life. The man who masters the art of walking away will never sit in a room where he is not valued, because he will never stay long enough to find out. Silence as a weapon. You have been taught that communication is power. Speak up, voice your feelings, make yourself heard. And there is a time for that. But nobody taught you the other side. Nobody told you that the most powerful thing you can do in a room full of noise is say absolutely nothing. Silence is not the absence of power, it is the highest expression of it. When you stop explaining yourself, something dangerous happens. People start filling the void with their own assumptions, their own fears, their own guilt. You become a mirror, and most people cannot stand what they see when the room goes quiet. Machiavelli knew that the prince who reveals his mind to every advisor has no mind left to rule with. Every word you speak is a piece of your strategy placed on the table for others to study. The more you talk, the more predictable you become. The more you explain, the more ammunition you hand to those who would use it against you. Silence keeps your cards in your hand. It keeps your enemies guessing and your allies respectful. Think about the people who unsettle you the most. They are not the loud ones. They are not the ones arguing in every conversation. They are the ones sitting in the corner watching, listening, processing, saying nothing while everyone else empties their entire mind onto the table. That calm unsettles people because it signals something most humans are not. Control. You react too fast. You respond too much. You defend yourself against accusations that would die on their own if you simply let them hang in the air. Every time you rush to explain, you validate the attack. Every time you argue with a fool, you promote him to your level. Let silence do what your words cannot. When someone provokes you and you do not flinch, you have won a war they did not even know they started. When someone lies about you and you say nothing, you force the world to watch them fight a shadow. The truth does not need a defense attorney. It needs time. And silence gives it exactly that. From today, speak less, observe more. Let your silence become so heavy that people feel the weight of it when you enter a room. That is not weakness. That is the quiet roar of a man who no longer needs to prove anything to anyone. Detach from outcomes, dominate the process. Here is where most men collapse. Not in the battle, not in the struggle, but in the waiting. They do everything right, put in the hours, make the sacrifices, burn the midnight down to its last ember. And then they attach every ounce of their identity to the result. And when the result does not come on time, or does not come at all, they shatter. That is not strength. That is gambling, dressed in discipline. Machiavelli understood that fortune controls half of our actions. Half. No matter how sharp your strategy, no matter how perfect your execution, there are forces in this world that you will never command. The weather of circumstance does not care about your plans. But here is what separates the prince from the peasant. The prince prepares for the flood before the sky darkens. He does not curse the rain. He builds the dam. You must fall in love with the process and divorce yourself from the outcome. This is not passive acceptance. This is the coldest, most strategic form of control that exists. When you detach from results, desperation dies. And when desperation dies, clarity is born. You stop forcing doors. You stop begging timelines. You stop measuring your worth by things that have not happened yet. Instead, you measure yourself by what you did today. Did you sharpen your mind? Did you move one step closer? Did you execute with discipline when no one was watching? That is the only scoreboard that matters. The Stoics called it the dichotomy of control. What is in your power and what is not. Your effort is yours. Your discipline is yours. Your focus, your habits, your refusal to quit, all yours. The outcome belongs to time, to chance, to 1,000 variables you will never see. The man who chains his peace to results he cannot guarantee is a prisoner of the future, and the future does not owe you anything. Detach from what happens. Dominate what you do. Let the world watch a man who keeps moving regardless of the scoreboard. That is the man nobody can break, because his power does not depend on victory. It depends on the relentless machine he has become. Outcomes are side effects. The process is the empire. Build accordingly. Read people don't need people. Every person you meet is telling you who they are. Every single one. Not with their words. Words are costumes. People dress their intentions in language designed to manage your perception. But their actions, their patterns, their micro-expressions when they think no one is watching, that is the confession. And most people miss it because they are too busy needing something from the person standing in front of them. Need blinds you. The moment you need approval from someone, you stop seeing them clearly. The moment you need love from someone, you start editing the red flags into something acceptable. The moment you need a deal from someone, you ignore every signal that tells you to walk. Need turns intelligent men into willing fools. Machiavelli advised that a prince must be a great pretender and dissembler, but he also said something deeper, that to survive among pretenders, you must become a student of human nature so sharp that no mask goes undetected. You do not have to manipulate people. That is the amateur's path. What you must do is understand them so thoroughly that no manipulation ever works on you again. Study what people do when they are tired. Study what they do when they have nothing to gain from you. Study the gap between what they promise when they need you and what they deliver when they do not. That gap is the truest measurement of any human being alive. But here is the key. Study them from a distance. The moment you step too close, the moment your peace depends on their consistency, you lose your vantage point. You go from scientist to subject, from observer to hostage. The most powerful position in any dynamic is the one who sees clearly and needs nothing. You can appreciate people without anchoring yourself to them. You can enjoy their company without requiring their presence. You can love without leaning. That is mastery. Build a life so complete in its own right that every person in it is a welcome guest and never a load-bearing wall. When you need no one, you finally see everyone for exactly who they are. And that vision is worth more than any relationship built on blindness. Rebuild yourself in solitude. The world is terrified of the man who can sit alone in a room and come out stronger than when he entered. Solitude is not punishment. It is not loneliness, rebranded. It is the forge where every weapon worth carrying is built, and yet most people run from it like it is a disease. They fill every silence with noise. They pack their schedules with people who drain them just to avoid sitting with their own thoughts. Because solitude forces you to meet the one person you have been avoiding your entire life, yourself. Machiavelli retreated to his study every evening after being exiled from Florence, stripped of his title, his influence, his place in the world. And in that silence, in that isolation that would have broken lesser men, he wrote the work that would instruct leaders for the next 5 centuries. He did not crumble in solitude. He became eternal in it. The Stoics practiced the same discipline. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, sat alone each night and wrote conversations with himself, not for the public, not for applause, for clarity, because he understood that the noise of the court could drown the voice of reason if a man did not deliberately seek silence. You need to disappear for a while, not to hide, to build. Every distraction you entertain is a brick removed from the empire you should be constructing. Every hour spent consuming the noise of others is an hour stolen from the architecture of your own mind. In solitude, you confront your weaknesses without an audience. You dismantle the false beliefs that were installed in you by people who never had your best interest at heart. You strip away the versions of yourself that were built for applause and start constructing the one that is built for war. Go dark. Turn off the phone. Close the door. Let the world wonder where you went. When you return, do not return the same. Return as the man they cannot recognize. The man who sat in the fire of his own silence and refused to scream. That is the man who terrifies the room without raising his voice. That is the man forged in solitude. Become the person nobody can control. Everything you have heard so far leads to this moment. This is the synthesis. This is where the philosophy stops being theory and becomes armor. When you master detachment from people, from outcomes, from the desperate need to be understood, you become something the world does not know how to handle. You become the person nobody can control. And that terrifies every system that was designed to keep you obedient. Think about how control works. Someone threatens to leave, and you fold. Someone offers validation, and you perform. Someone dangles an opportunity, and you beg. Every single mechanism of control requires one thing from you: a need. Without your need, the entire machinery collapses. The threat means nothing to a man who is already willing to walk. The validation means nothing to a man who has already validated himself. The opportunity means nothing to a man who has built his own table. Machiavelli wrote that the prince who depends on the goodwill of others builds his fortress on sand. You have been building on sand your entire life. Every time you adjusted your personality for acceptance, you weakened your foundation. Every time you silenced your instinct to keep the peace, you traded power for comfort. Every time you let someone's opinion reroute your direction, you handed them the steering wheel of your life and sat quietly in the back seat. That era is finished. The uncontrollable man is not reckless. He is not chaotic. He is not the one flipping tables and burning bridges for the spectacle of it. He is the calm one, the measured one, the one who has done the internal work so thoroughly that external pressure bounces off him like rain off stone. He does not react because he has already decided who he is. He does not chase because he has already defined what he deserves. He does not break because he has already broken himself down in private and rebuilt every piece with intention. People will try to provoke you. They will test your silence. They will dangle the things you once craved just to see if the old version of you still lives somewhere inside. Let them search. That man is gone. What stands in his place is something they have never encountered before. A man who needs nothing, fears nothing, and answers to no one but the code he built for himself. That is not arrogance. That is completion. And the world has no strategy for a man who is already whole. The final law: detach and rise. This is the final law, the one that holds all the others together, the one that separates the man who listened from the man who transformed. Detach and rise, not halfway, not when it is convenient, not when the pain makes it easy to let go. Now, while it still costs you something, because detachment that costs you nothing teaches you nothing. The real test is cutting the cord while your hand is still shaking. It is walking away while every nerve in your body screams to turn around. It is choosing silence when your chest is full of words that want to explode. That is where power is born, in the gap between what you feel and what you do. Machiavelli's entire legacy rests on one principle that the world still refuses to accept. The men who rule are not the ones with the most passion. They are the ones with the most control over their passion. Emotion is fuel, but fuel without a container is just a fire that burns the one who lit it. You must become the container. You must become so disciplined in your detachment that the world cannot find a single thread to pull. No relationship makes you desperate. No failure makes you quit. No success makes you lazy. No enemy makes you bitter. You move through life like water through stone, patient, persistent, and impossible to hold in one place. Everything you heard in this video is useless if you do not act on it tonight. Not tomorrow, not next week. Tonight, sit in silence and audit your life. Identify the attachments that are draining you. Name the people who hold power over your emotions. Recognize the outcomes you are clinging to that are keeping you paralyzed. And then begin the surgical process of letting go. One chord at a time, one illusion at a time, one old version of yourself at a time. You are not who you were when you pressed play on this video. Something has shifted. Something behind your eyes is colder now, sharper, more awake. That is not cruelty. That is clarity. And clarity is the birthplace of every empire that ever stood. If this video lit something inside you that refuses to go out, drop one comment below. Write these words: I detach, I rise, I am untouchable. Let that be your declaration. Let the algorithm carry it, and let every man who reads it know that someone else out there has chosen power over comfort. Now, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so you never miss a weapon we forge here. This is not entertainment, this is preparation, and the war for your mind has already begun. Rise accordingly.